Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of RPGs with Paddy. I'm Paddy. Today we're going to be looking at the history of the Golden Dawn as presented in Pagan Publishing's The Golden Dawn. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, this information is intended only for keepers, but that being said, it's not really connected to game mechanics, and players could find out all of this information if they just did generic research into the Golden Dawn. Therefore, I'm not applying a really strict spoiler warning here. Players, use your best judgment. Keepers, let's dig in. The only thing I will say is sometimes it's better to leave a secret society secret. You could find out secrets you don't want to know, or, in this case, be disappointed by the immaturity and infighting in the society. But let's get started. So, we'll start with the origin of the Golden Dawn.
It all starts with the Rosicrucian legend. According to the legend, Christian Rosenkreuz was born in 1378 in Austria, but soon moved to Germany. He went to Arabia, Egypt, Fez, Spain, and finally back to Germany. In each place, he learned languages and secret knowledge. Now, moving on to the Golden Dawn. In 1886, Dr. William Wynne Westcott was a member of the Rosicrucian Society in England, but he heard about some secret manuscripts written in cipher. A year later, he had obtained and deciphered it. It led him to a Rosicrucian adept, Fräulein Sprengel in Germany. She turned out to be the head of a German order called Die Goldene Dämmerung, the Golden Dawn. With Fräulein Sprengel's permission, Westcott started working on setting up a branch of the Golden Dawn in England. He recruited Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers, a fellow Mason, and Dr. W. R. Woodman, the Supreme Magus of the British Rosicrucian Society. Before the current venture, there had been two previous temples. Temple number 1 is Fräulein Sprengel's temple in Germany, still in operation, and temple number 2 was a previous failed attempt at a temple in England. It fell into disrepute when they lost some important manuscript, and it finally closed when the founders died. In 1888, a new Golden Dawn temple was founded. It was called Temple Number 3, Isis Urania, and it was located in London. As the Golden Dawn grew, more temples were established. Later the same year, Temple Number 4, Osiris, was established in Somerset, and Temple Number 5, Horus, was established in Bradford. In 1893, Temple Number 6, Amun-Ra, was set up in Edinburgh, and the final temple, Temple Number 7, Ahathur, was established in Paris. The order consisted of 3 kinds of grades: the outer order, for new initiates, the inner order, for the more adept, and the secret chiefs order. The secret chiefs were a secret group of 3 leaders of the order, but they were none other than Mathers, Woodman, and Westcott, the 3 founding members. By this stage, the membership included about 170 members total, but after subtracting deaths, expulsions, lapsed memberships, resignations, and so on, there were about 120 members, men and women. In 1890, word came that Fräulein Sprengel in Germany had died, and it appears that she was the only member of the German branch that supported Westcott and the English branch of the Golden Dawn. The secret chiefs of Temple Number 1 in Germany disowned the English branch, and they were cut off from the established order. In 1891, Dr. Woodman passes away, and Mathers declares himself the overall chief of the inner order, despite the presence of Dr. Westcott, who was the original founder. Mathers must have some hold over him. The following year, Mathers and his wife Moina, formerly known as Mina, moved to Paris. This move and their lifestyle was funded by Annie Horniman. Horniman was the former classmate and friend of Moina. Horniman wanted the money to be used for Moina to restart her art activities. But most of the money was spent on Golden Dawn business and Samuel Mathers's political activities. In 1895, the wheels started coming off. A controversial pamphlet was passed around Isis Urania by someone calling themselves Respiro, promoting the use of sex magic. It was widely believed to be Dr. Edward Berridge. Members of the Inner Order were annoyed by this, notably Westcott and Horniman. Horniman wrote a letter to Mathers, complaining about this and threatening to cut off his funding. Mathers was furious and thought the inner circle was questioning his leadership. Westcott managed to convince him that the Inner Order was only worried about the pamphlet and that anything else was just Horniman's personal issues. But later that year, Horniman demanded that Mathers stop his political activities and focus only on the Golden Dawn, or she would stop sending money. He was furious again and wrote a letter accusing Isis Urania of 13 violations, 11 of which were directed at Horniman, who resigned her high office. Mathers put out a charter for all members to sign, swearing loyalty to him. Horniman signed this charter, but continued to get aggressive letters from Mathers. She also got letters from her friend Moina Mathers, defending her husband, but Horniman stopped sending money. Mathers expelled her from the order. Horniman asked Westcott to defend her, but he decided not to. Maybe Mathers has some dirt on him. Another friend of Horniman, F.L. Gardner, put together a petition to reinstate Horniman, but he never sent it to Mathers. In 1897, Dr. Westcott's medical superiors find out that he is a member of the Golden Dawn, and he is forced to resign from the Golden Dawn. Mathers actually left some Golden Dawn stuff with Westcott's name on it in a cab so that he would be caught. This wasn't the only dirt that Mathers had on him. However, Mathers doesn't have any money since Horniman stopped funding his lifestyle, so he talks to Gardner, who was also a wealthy stockbroker. Gardner agrees to fund the translation of an occult book, the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. Later in the year, there is another pamphlet by Respiro, again probably Dr. Berridge. It talked about a magical attack on a woman, clearly Annie Horniman. Gardner is pretty angry about this attack on his friend, and also with the constant delays in the book that Mathers promised. He sets out terms and conditions for Mathers to follow, but obviously Mathers reacted poorly to the insubordination. However, Mathers did decide to discipline Dr. Berridge for the pamphlets, so he was suspended for 3 months. Gardner was angry after Dr. Berridge came back after 3 months, and Gardner wrote an angry letter to Dr. Berridge. Dr. Berridge passed on the letter to Mathers, who became angry that Gardner was questioning his authority. Equally, Gardner was angry that Mathers had read a private letter. Florence Farr, who was basically the leader of Isis Urania at this point, wrote to Gardner trying to calm him down so that Mathers would not be so defensive and dig in his heels, but also reprimanding Gardner for treating fellow order members as employees rather than as peers. Gardner then complained to Mathers about Farr, but Mathers did nothing. Gardner resigned from Isis Urania. Finally, the following year, the Abramelin book was ready for publication. Mathers wanted to make a more limited print, but Gardner wanted to make back some money and ordered 1,000 published. After a year, he had sold only 120. In 1899, Gardner was still angry about the poor sales of the Abramelin book and decided to publish some of Mather's less-known occult writings. Unfortunately, he did so without Mather's permission. Gardner is permanently expelled from the Golden Dawn. Around this time in Paris, Mathers met the Horace couple, Frank Jackson and Editha Salomon, Americans who claimed to be members of an American Golden Dawn. In 1900, Mathers revealed to Florence Farr that the Fräulein Sprengel letters were forgeries and that there never was any German Golden Dawn. This is probably the dirt he had on Westcott that allowed Mathers to be the main leader. Aleister Crowley had been working hard, rising through the ranks and doing the 6-month-long ritual from Abramelin at a retreat in Scotland. However, Crowley finds out that even though he has been granted Inner Order status, it was not recognized by the Isis Urania Temple. Yeats, Farr, and other Inner Order members conclude that the Golden Dawn was created under false pretenses. Mathers brings in some new rules, such as mandatory wearing of masks by all members, and the vault of the Adepts was moved to Blythe Road, with the keys given to Dr. Berridge. A small group from Isis Urania tried to gain control of the vault, but Crowley opposed them. The police were called, but nothing could be resolved. A few days later, Crowley appeared at the vault in full ceremonial dress, but Yeats had already gone there and evicted Crowley with the help of the landlord. The committee suspended Crowley and Berridge at this stage and blocked access to Isis Urania to anyone from other temples. Isis Urania now abandoned the teachings of the Golden Dawn and renamed the order the Research and Archaeology Society. It is led by Yeats and Horniman. They allow new members such as Algernon Blackwood to join, but reject the Horace couple, the Americans that Mathers met in Paris. However, within a few months, Yeats and Horniman resigned their leadership. So here I'll just put a trigger warning for SA, unfortunately. In 1901, the Horace couple are charged and convicted with the SA of a young girl. From my research, she was about 16, which allegedly involved a Golden Dawn ritual. And this was a black mark from which the Golden Dawn could not recover. Over the next decade or so, there were a few attempts made to revive the order, but really, this was the end of it.
So, that's the story of the Golden Dawn, as presented in Pagan Publishing's The Golden Dawn. It speaks of a society of secrecy, occult knowledge, forgery, scams, and infighting. It really plays out much more like a trashy soap opera than the supposedly learned and sophisticated members of a secret occult society. Now, how useful is this for role-playing? It's hard to put a value on it. For a keeper who wants to run a campaign or a series of scenarios where the Golden Dawn is an important aspect, then all of this drama could be very useful. There are helpful notes given for each major NPC showing how they could help or hinder the players if they are enemies or allies. And the constant shift of power can change the dynamic. If someone is in power in the order, the players might be able to get favors or secret information. But if that character is out of power at a certain time, they may be less useful. Equally, having an enemy who at first is unimportant but becomes powerful later can teach the players valuable lessons. But mainly, in my opinion, this is an overly extensive history of all of the drama associated with the Order. From a historic perspective, assuming it's all historically accurate, It's very interesting. From a role-playing perspective, however, I don't think it's that useful. The players really aren't going to find out even a fraction of this information. Will it help the keeper to have a great solid background on the Golden Dawn so as to create a deep, believable and living secret society? Yes, absolutely. Yes, it's fantastic for that. Could it have been done equally well, or could it have been equally useful in a role-playing sense in a more condensed format? I think so. So the vast majority of this book's resources section, so not including the scenario, is taken up by the history and personalities. And I feel like most of that will not be used in the role-playing for the Golden Dawn. So that is where we'll end today. In the next video coming up, which should be today as well, on Friday, there will also be the review of the first scenario in this book, The Room Beyond, where the players are it's an introductory scenario into the Golden Dawn. Okay, so that is it for today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Take it easy. Bye.